couple days ago, I had the idea to make a shader that would make any polygon. This isn't out of the blue. I've tried to do this before, but I have been far from successful. Well, eventually I figured it out and made a shader that does exactly that. I can choose the radius and, more importantly, the amount of sides up until n equals 10, until it, breaks. So I can go up until 10, and I go down to a triangle. And I accomplish this by looking at the interior angles and just figuring out what's the exterior and what's the interior, and then just multiplying them together to get a shape. I have a friend who also dabbles in Blender, but he's more of a programmer, and he sent me to this website. Now it's about a different shader language, specifically one that's for programmers. And since we don't know, and since we are not programmers, but we're shader editors, this is about as good as we're gonna get. As this is a shading language, so it's a programming shading language, so we can convert it into the shader editor into something we can comprehend. And that's what I did. I went through this, looked at this. It's not very complicated. You just have to know that this is the signed arctangent, not the regular arctangent. And you'll get something that looks like this. So this is a node group I made. And you can control the amount of sides infinitely, so you can approximate a circle if you really feel like it, rotate it, change the thickness, and we'll actually the radius. So we can compare nodes, so we can do things like this, if we so wish. I just prefer to keep it on this, so we can do thickness. And I'll go through how this works. So first of all, let's look at A. This node group here, and it is the signed arctangent. More importantly, it is a signed one. Is this arctangent, not the regular arctangent of x and y components of our vector. And add in this number is actually arbitrary. This is the rotation value. So if we were to change this, this is again just the rotation, which is in radians. So 2 pi radians is 1 revolution. On to B. B is a little bit simpler. It takes the number of sides we have, floors it, because we want an integer value because you can't have a non-integer amount of sides, and multiplies by 2 pi. So we can just do that by typing in 2 times pi. Or you type in just that number, it's good enough. Changing this just makes it look weird, so I wouldn't recommend changing this value. You can change this value though, for A, which is again the rotation. And then here comes the more complicated step. Ignore this part, we only want to look at the cosine and this value up to here. So let's go through that. So I separated these into the frames A and B just to keep it a little less complicated. So first thing we want to do is remember our order of operations from high school and go into the very middle. So we have A divided by B, which is right here. And you just want to set this to 0.5. 0.5, it's not important why it's 0.5. All I know is it is 0.5, and changing it makes it look a bit weird. So unless you want to chainsaw, then you want to leave it at 0.5. Well, then you want to take the floor of all of this. Next, we're going to multiply by B and subtract A, which is what we do here. Multiply by B and then subtract A. Now take the cosine of everything in here, which is this node, and you have your output here. Now we want to multiply that by length, which is we can grab the length just from the vector. And just from the vector input here, and multiply those together. And this is a little trick I made for sides less than 3, so we can get not an error or not a weird shader. But this is important. So I just connect this to compare, and we get our output here like this. Now for this little trick, I wanted to just grab the sides, because I'm all the way back, n sides less than 3. This is set up so that if we do put in sides less than 3, it won't result in something looking really weird, which I can show you. If we go back, and we change it back to here. If we go with sides less than 3, it's just like a big box that is the radius, which isn't very useful, especially if you're doing something procedural. You kind of do want something to be there, at least as an option. So if we go back and connect this to the compare, this is set up so that if n is less than 3, which is with the less than node, it'll swap between what we've created and just the length. So if n is less than 3 like it is here, it'll just be a circle. So you can just control that, so you can use that for a shader. This is actually pretty computationally simple for the computer to handle, so you can do this a lot and mirror a lot. Like if you look at my previous tutorials, it'll allow you to do some crazy things just by randomly scattering shapes across the plane or offsetting them in a grid. So hope this is just easy to follow. If you want to get a good look at the whole shader, I'll have the node group on my Patreon. But if you want to just screenshot it or capture, I guess I'll scroll through slowly. You can pause whenever you like, and you can just copy it to your own shader editor. And I have it set up like this on the outside, just so it gives you a few more settings and options and makes it easy to change. Thanks for watching. Peace.